Welcome everyone. My name is Cristiano. I'm from the Excel Turbo channel and the Excel Weekend organization. I'm here live with Jon Peltier, MVP, at my side, and let's bring him to the camera and enjoy this talk. Thanks for accepting the invitation,
Well,
and
thanks for
it's
inviting me.
a
I
pleasure.
was very happy to be included.
Thank
Um,
you, thank you.
so
Okay, guys, enjoy. John is extremely good on this, and I'm sure you will like this session. Okay, John,
okay,
your show.
thanks. I guess we can share my screen. And thanks, Cristiano, for inviting me to Excel Weekend 7. I love doing these kind of things, and I love talking to people. I'll talk all day, so you got to cut me off if I go too long. Um, Cristiano said, "What topic are you going to do?" And I told him effective charting in Excel. Again, my name is Jon Peltier. I'm in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, and I am an Excel MVP and have been one for 20 years. Um, for most of that time, I have run my company, Peltier Tech, and the website is shown here, peltiertech.com. And I tell people if you're ever in one of my seminars and you have a question about the seminar or about anything Excel, send me an email, say, hey, I caught you in Excel Weekend 7. Here's my question, and I'll do my best to answer it. So anyway, let's get started. Effective charting. A couple days ago, I sat down to plan this talk, and I said, what did I mean when I told them I was going to do effective charting? And I thought, well, really, that charting is effective for one of two reasons. First of all, if you make it easy to create and modify your charts, and that mostly has to do with the data. And then do you make your charts easy to read and understand? And that mostly has to do with formatting. So let's start talking about chart data. The most important chart trick is get the data right. People love their tips and tricks, and I think it's kind of a funny concept. It's kind of like thinking, oh, if I learn a couple more guitar riffs, I'm going to be a great bluesman like B.B. King. And it doesn't work that way. In music, you don't become a better musician by learning a few tricks. An athlete doesn't become a better athlete. They don't become better at their sport by a few tricks. You become better by practicing and practicing and practicing. But if you need one trick in Excel charting, it's get the data right. And so what makes good charting data? The data should be contiguous. It should be all in one block, no blank rows or columns. Blank cells are okay because they mean, oh, there's missing data, and either the data is totally unavailable or now you're going to go back, track it down somewhere. Why do we want no blank rows or columns? Well, if you're going to insert a chart, you don't have to go through all the trouble of selecting the whole range. You can just select one cell in there, and let's just insert any old chart here, column chart. You see what happened? I just selected one cell, and Excel figures out where that data range extends to. And it does that by looking for blank rows or columns. So if you have blank rows or columns in your data, it's going to mess up Excel. And you see when you select the chart, if your data range is a nice data range like this, it highlights certain things. And you can see that my top row is colored differently, and those labels correspond to the series names, which are in the legend. And that first column is formatted differently, and those labels correspond to the axis labels. And if I select just a single series, you can see that the values are in columns, and the next series, the values are in columns, and so forth. So with those data highlights, I just showed you this already. They give you some hints about what makes a good chart range, in addition to just being contiguous, without blanks in the middle everywhere. So data is in columns, and you see this is my data, and that first row is where I put my series names. You can work data in rows, but when you get data from a database, when you get data from a query and so forth, it's arranged this way. And you have column headers. Power Query gives you column headers. And so you have each row is kind of a record that reflects the value of the variables represented in each column. And so doing it in columns is better. If you have a pivot table, you make a chart, you can only do it by columns. In a regular chart, if you switch rows and columns, it switches rows and columns. But in a pivot chart, if you switch rows and columns, it actually changes the pivot table. So now what were columns are now rows, and it still plots in columns. So it's a good idea to just get in that habit of plotting in columns. The first row has the series names, as I pointed out. And the first column has category names or X values. And one important thing, especially for like line charts, column charts, and so forth, is that first column should be a different format than the data that you're going to plot. The data here has to be numeric because it's plotting some value. The first column, you want it to be text or date to help Excel actually parse the data. So let me show you what I mean here. Here, my first column, it's month names, but really that's text. And if I make a chart from this, I'm going to go to Insert, I'll make a line chart. I like line charts with the markers because then I know for sure that there's a data point everywhere. And you see, all I did was I selected one cell, and Excel figured out that here were my X-axis labels and here were my series names. It was easy for Excel to figure out because that was text and not numbers. And the same thing, if I insert a column chart, the same thing. Column charts and line charts and even bar charts work the same way with that category axis. If I do a bar chart, that's a horizontal column chart, Excel still figured out what to do with it. Now, if I try to make an XY scatter chart of this, Excel's going to get a little confused because it doesn't know how to plot January, February, and so forth numerically. So you see what it does, it says, okay, I can't understand those, they're just text. So it just says, okay, the first one are these values, the second one are those values, and so forth. It just uses counting numbers there. But that's fine. If you're going to make an XY chart, you make sure you have actual numerical values in the first column. The other thing about line charts and column charts and bar charts is every series uses the same X values. So in an XY chart, it doesn't have to be that way. I'm not going to get into all those details. How else can you make the first column different? You can put dates in that column, and Excel notices that it's formatted as dates. So when I insert, and I'm just going to use line charts from now on, I insert a line chart, and you see I have dates across the bottom. And they're kind of hard to read here because they're rotated, but I can easily fix that. Whenever you select something in the chart and do Control-1, you get this task pane over here, and it lets you format the object in the chart that you have selected. So I'm going to change that. Instead of 2 days, I'm going to do 7 days. 7 days is a natural unit to use because it's the number of days in a week. So that works fine with a line chart. And let's look at what happens with an XY chart. I'll click this, I'll select one, and I have this, again, it's dates across the bottom. And since dates are numbers, Excel knows how to plot them. It plots it a little bit funny. They overlap a lot because they're too close together. And if I go over here and format my axis, I can see that Excel is plotting them 5 days apart, and 5 days is out of sync with my weekly data, but I can just change that very easily. And now it's almost in sync. And let's see, I'm about 2 days off. Actually, I'm 5 days off. So let me change that. 44198 is what it says. I'm going to change it 44193. Excel uses numbers like 44,000 to refer to dates. It's the number of days since January 1st, 1900, and we're not going to talk about the leap year error that happened back then. But So here now we see that these are weekly dates, and the line chart and the scatter chart deal with dates just fine. Now, what if my first column is actually numbers? Here I've plotted numbers by year. And if I make an XY chart, well, we're not going to be too surprised at the result. I get a nice plot, and every year has data. If I try to make a line chart or a column chart or bar chart or area chart out of this same data, you've probably all done this. You tried to make a line chart, and Excel puts one series way up here, and it's like, I don't have any values like 2000. The biggest one is 8. What happened here? Oh, what happened here is that Excel saw that all I had was numbers, and it's a line chart, so it just tried to plot everything, all the numbers. And you can do it otherwise. You can manually select the whole range, insert your chart, and then you have to go back, and now I don't have the right X values. Well, that's easy to do. I can do it the hard way, which is right click on that and go to select data, and then I can come over here to edit, and I can select that range, and it'll give me that. But you know what the easiest way is? I can just select one series. My series formula has 4 different items in it. The first one tells me D4. That's the series name. The second one is blank. That's because I don't have X values. And the third one is D5 to D10, which are my Y values. And 1 just means it's the first series. So what I can do is put my cursor right in between the 2 commas where the blank is and edit it just like any other formula in Excel. And I'm just going to select the range I want and go click, and there we are. But that's a pain in the neck. The easiest way to deal with this is with this TLC. That stands for the top left cell. And again, I'll show you what happens if there's something in that top left cell. I get this chart, which is ridiculous. But if what I do is I come over to this TLC and I delete the contents, so the top left cell is blank. Now, if I insert my chart, that blank cell is enough to tell Excel that that first column is different, and now it does it the way we want. The other thing about getting the data right is tables. I've seen quite a few times where already in the last couple days, people said, oh, these tables are great. And if you put your chart data in a table, it makes your charting work very nicely. So what I'm going to do, how do you make a table? There's a few different ways. And again, you can just select one cell and Excel will figure out the whole range. But on the Home tab, you can go over to here to Format as Table, and you get to choose your format. Or you can go to Insert tab and you say Insert a Table. Well, you're not inserting it, you're converting the range to a table. Or you can just use the shortcut Control-T. And Control-T, and that pops up the Create Table dialog. And it says what the range is, and you make sure you check it has headers. Usually it can tell if it has headers, but sometimes Excel gets it wrong. And so you say OK, and you get this formatted range that has the filter buttons here, which let you sort or filter and so forth. And so now if I make a table chart from this, well, first of all, if I make, okay, this is going to work because I have text in the first column. So I'm just going to insert my line chart, and I'll go like this. And now here's the magic of a table, though. If I add some data, I'm going to add another row, and so G, and the value here is going to be, let's just say, I don't know, 7, 6, 5. And you see already, I added something to the cell down there, and the table automatically extended to include the data that I was adding, and the chart automatically extended to include the new row of the table. And that's awesome. And what's even more awesome is if I add another column. So next after gamma is delta. I like to use Greek letters here, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 2, 3. And you see that as I add the data, it's extending the chart. And so data in tables is great for charting. It means it's so easy to make a dynamic chart that expands with your data. And so use these tables. They're great stuff. All right, enough about data. we're going to talk about formatting for understanding. You want to make your charts easy for people to understand. And, usually we talk about don't use 3D charts and don't do stuff like that. Well, I'm going to get into just a few specific things to make your charts easier to read. So here I have some data. I live in the northeast corner of the United States, and there's 6 states up here which are called New England, and it's Massachusetts where I live, and Rhode Island where I grew up, New Hampshire where my parents live, Maine where my sister lives, and Connecticut and Vermont where nobody lives. And so what I have is some population values here, and you see how they're listed here. And because my labels are kind of long, Excel says, okay, I got to make them easier to read, so it puts them at an angle, but that's not really easier to read. You got to tip your head, and sometimes they're even vertical, and it's very hard to read. So what I'm going to do is make those labels horizontal. And the way to do that, you come up here on the Home tab, and there's none that says horizontal here. So what you have to do is pick one, and then you have to unpick it. So I'm going to rotate text up, and you see that's even harder to read. And now I'm going to come back and I'm going to unselect it. And now they're horizontal. Now they're easy to read, but the problem is they're not all there. So I don't know which one this is, and I don't know which one that is. And so what we need to do is show them all. So I've got that selected. I'm going to come over to Format Axis, and on Labels, automatic means it's skipping every other one, and I don't want that. So I'm going to specify that they're here at every interval. And well, now they're overlapping, so I can sort of tell what they are because I know in my head what they are. But that's not exactly right. But what I can do is maybe I can use abbreviations. See, so in my data range, I have state names, the full names, and population, but I also have a column for the abbreviation. And you see, if I select the chart, I'm using Connecticut for my x-axis labels. Well, if I select that series, I can change my x-axis labels. I can just grab it and drag it over. And now that's much easier to read. The only problem with the abbreviations is there's a lot of folks watching this video right now from South America. You probably don't know what CT or ME or so forth stand for. It doesn't make any sense. You might have heard of Connecticut or Massachusetts, but these abbreviations don't lead to understanding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a different kind of chart. Instead of using the vertical column chart, I'm going to use a horizontal bar chart. And okay, and that didn't work out exactly right. So what I'm going to do is do it right. Since I'm not using all these columns, I have to select them separately, and you can hold Control to select 2 discontiguous columns. And now I'm going to insert my my column chart, my bar chart. And you see now that the labels are horizontal just by default, and so and Excel can make it longer so it's easier to read. There's still some cleanup I have to do here, and I'll show you that in a second. First of all, those now we have the y-axis values are overlapping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my number format, and I can do that here very easily under number, and I'm going to type something in the format code here. And so what I want is I want to show whole numbers of millions. So I'm going to do 0, and I want to put M after the number. But in order to convert that number to millions, well, first of all, you have to put the M in quotes or put a backslash in front of it, or else Excel will think you want to put minutes or something in that format. But in order to convert that from whole numbers to millions, I have to put a couple of commas here. Each comma takes away 3 digits from the number. So the first one takes away the thousands, the next one takes away millions. And if I put another one, it would change it to billions. And now I have to click Add. It annoys me that I can't hit Enter in that box and get a format, but you have to hit Add. So now here's my 0 million, 1 million, and so forth. So that's partly cleaned up. The other problem is the list of states here goes from Vermont to Connecticut, but it was Connecticut to Vermont in my data. Excel always plots the chart, it seems upside down. There's some internal logic to it, but I won't get into that now. But you can easily change that under Axis Options, where you would normally be playing with the scale, you can click categories in reverse order, and now it's in the right order. And if you want those million labels back on the bottom, what you have to do is over here, horizontal axis crosses, and you say at maximum category, which because I flipped it is now at the bottom. And so now my chart is fine. And so there's the label orientation the way you want it. Horizontal labels are the easiest to read. Let's see what else. Now also, these are sorted alphabetically by state name, not even by state abbreviation, because Massachusetts and Maine flip each other. But you can make a chart easier to read and easier to understand if instead of sorting by state name or sorting by the abbreviation, which makes even less sense, if you sort by the value, and I'm going to sort from largest to smallest, it makes all of these charts easier for someone to understand. You can instantly see a ranking of the different states. And even here, even though New Hampshire and Maine are close in size, because the rest of the data is sorted, New Hampshire has slightly more human residents and probably a lot less moose than New Hampshire. And in a pie chart too, it's generally best if you sort them not alphabetically, numerically. So the first pie slice is the biggest, and then the next biggest, and you end with the smallest. A lot of people say don't use pie charts, and I'll say I use pie charts. Pie charts are okay. Don't overuse them, and follow some of the rules that you'll see posted online. Data labels versus a legend. You see, I have a legend here, and the problem with a legend, it's color coded and so forth. So I can say, okay, the blue one, matches that blue, so that's Massachusetts and Connecticut. But I have to look back and forth and back and forth, and that's just terrible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that legend, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add data labels. And those aren't exactly the labels I wanted to see. I just wanted to see the state names. So again, you select them, you go Control-1, and it lets you choose what you want to show. Series name doesn't make sense because all the points are the same, but I'm going to select category name and not value, and we'll get rid of leader lines. I find they clutter things. And well, I'll leave them there for a second. And so now the labels are in all different places. And I like to have them, and that's what Excel calls best fit. And I generally don't think that Excel does a good job of best fitting their labels. So I'll choose something like outside end. And now all the labels are outside the chart, and it's easy to read them. That's pretty good. It's not too bad. Now you might want to also add the values. So I'll say we'll add the value, and you can take away the comma if if it's going to put it on the next line anyway. I'm just going to say new line, and there's some labels, and this makes it a lot easier than the legend, and it also gives you a little bit more information. One last thing that you could do is maybe I want to show, instead of showing these labels, I want to show the abbreviation of the state, and I'll put them right in the wedges. So what I do is I'll select this value from cells, which is a neat thing that they introduced, I think, in Excel 2013, after we begged for 20 years. And so I'll select the range that contains my labels, and I'll say OK. And you see now I have the abbreviation as well, so I can get rid of category name and value. And then what I can do is change it so my label position is inside end. I could choose center, but then some of the small ones near the top, they're a little bit too close together. So I'm going to say inside end. And to make them easier to read, I'll make them bold, and I'll change the font color to white. And now they stick out. Now you can even increase the size a little bit. And so labeling right on the chart, as I just showed, is a lot easier than using a legend. Since I'm talking about legends, let's look at a line chart with a legend. Again, the problem with the legend is you got to keep going back and forth to say, okay, the gray one's gamma, and the blue one is alpha. And that's really kind of a pain. But I can choose a different position for my label. If I put it on the right, then it's closer to my data. But you know, you got to grab it by the edge. If I bring it right up near my data here, I can get confused because the order of the series is not the same as the order of my labels, and so it still leads to confusion. So what I'm going to do is put data labels on my points, and I'm not going to put them on all the points because that'll get cluttered. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to label the last point in each series, and I'll right click and I'll say add data label, and it's giving me the wrong data label. So then I have to come over here and I have to select series name and unselect. I'll get rid of the, and you know what I did? When you add a label just to one point, that's what you get. So I'm going to add a data label. And when I clicked once, I'm selecting the whole series of labels. And I don't want to do that. And you see up here it says format data labels, but I never noticed that until I goof it up the first time. So then you have to click on it again, and now you see the little circles changed. So now that indicates I'm only selecting the one label. This says I'm only formatting data label. So I'm going to click over here again, and I'm going to show my series name, and I'm going to get rid of value, and I'm going to get rid of leader lines. And so now I've labeled my last point, and then you got to do it. Now, labeling the last point is a little bit tedious. So well, actually, I can't show it. I don't have it installed. Can you imagine? I don't have my own software installed. So I'm going to have to do it by hand. And so I'm going to, again, oh, it added it all. Yeah, so there's a difference here. So again, I'll select just the one, right-click, add data label. Select just the one, right-click, add data label, and then very quickly I'll come over here and I'll do series name, uncheck. I did it again. See, it's easy to get all messed up here. Series name, not value, and over here, 2 clicks, 2 single clicks. Series name, value, no leader lines, and now that's almost perfect. What I'm going to do to make it even a little bit easier, I'm going to color code those labels. And so I'll use the same, no, I don't want to do the fill, Control Z. Before I forget, I'm just going to say my absolute favorite shortcut in Excel is Control Z because it undoes what I just messed up. So I'll color code and I'll make it bold, and I'll color code beta and I'll make it bold, and I'll color code alpha and I'm going to make it bold. Let's see, looks like I have about 2 minutes left, so I'm going to,
yes, 2 minutes.
I'm going to barrel ahead. I'm going to try not to talk too fast, but okay. So anyway, in pie chart, here's my colors. It looks pretty good. Each thing has a separate color, but sometimes, you know, I might not want to do exactly that kind of color. There's a lot of options in the chart design and change colors. And if you see, yeah, you know, I can pick some different colors, and they're just all kind of random colors. But sometimes it's nice to do kind of a monochromatic. So the biggest one is the darkest color blue, and they progressively, you know, get lighter as they get smaller. And that's kind of an interesting thing. The other thing another way to maybe format things is each wedge doesn't have to be, it's a separate color. What I can do is come over here and just select, you know, a light color for the whole pie, and I want to emphasize. Oh, look at that! It took away the line that I had, and so let me fix that. When you play with charts and you fiddle with it and fiddle with it and fiddle with it, sometimes you can't get back to the default. So anyway, here's a chart. I want to emphasize Massachusetts. So the same with the labels. If you do 2 single clicks, you can select just one point. And what I'm going to do is use a darker blue for Massachusetts and say Massachusetts has the largest population of all the states. If I were doing it by square miles, Maine would be the largest, but Massachusetts has the largest population of New England. And that way I'm emphasizing Massachusetts. If I wanted to, I could, you know, do the same kind of format for Connecticut, or maybe I could make that not quite as dark And then the rest of them, since they're only about 30%, I can just de-emphasize them by keeping them light. I can do the same kind of thing with bar chart colors. See here, they're all one color, and that's fine. What makes a pie chart have its wedges all different colors, if I come over here and vary colors by points, and of course, because the last thing I did is I changed colors here. Let's go back to the normal colors. And what also it does is it puts a white border. Yeah, give me 30 seconds. This isn't very useful, but if I go back, instead of varying colors by points by that color scale, I can either use this same gradient, or I can go back to just a solid fill, and I can emphasize Massachusetts, saying, well, it's the one I find more important, so I'll give it a different color so it stands out. So anyway, so I'm all out of time. Thanks very much for having me here. If you have any questions about this, you can always shoot me an email, and enjoy what's left of the day.